Welcome to our multimedia tour of the museum's Lancaster bomber. At the beginning of the Second World War, the only bombers in service were twin-engined aircraft such as the Blenheim, an example of which you can see behind the Lancaster. As the war progressed, four-engine bombers came into service. The Lancaster first became operational in March of 1942. Of the 7,377 Lancasters built, 3,932 were lost in action. The museum's aircraft is one of 430 built in Canada. It was flown to England just as the war was ending and saw no combat. During the 1950s, the aircraft was modified to fulfill a maritime reconnaissance anti-submarine role, flying extensively from bases on both the Atlantic and Pacific coasts. In 1960, three Nanton residents saved the aircraft from being scrapped at a former training base 28 kilometers east of town, purchasing it for $513. It was towed across the fields, through a river, and placed on display beside the highway where it stood for 30 years. Then in 1991, the Lancaster was placed in this building to become the centerpiece of this museum that honors the efforts of Bomber Command and the sacrifices of those who served. The bomber offensive, mounted by the Royal Air Force, the Royal Canadian Air Force, and the air forces of other Commonwealth countries, has been described as the most continuous and grueling operation of war ever carried out. It lasted for 2,000 days and for 4 long years. While the world waited for the tide to slowly turn, Bomber Command offered the only weapon capable of waging war against Hitler's European fortress. Of the 125,000 aircrew who served, 55,573 were killed, of which over 10,000 were Canadian. During the RCAF's operations in 1943, the loss rates averaged 6% per mission, and the chances of a crew surviving their tour of 30 operations was a mere 16%. Canada's Bomber Command Memorial Wall's list of 10,659 names include those of all the Canadian airmen who were killed. One of the names is that of Squadron Leader Ian Bazalgette, an Albertan who was posthumously awarded the Victoria Cross for his bravery at the controls of a Lancaster. The museum's aircraft is the Ian Bazalgette's Memorial Lancaster, having been dedicated to his memory. The markings F2T on the fuselage are the markings of Squad Leader Ian Bazalgette's aircraft. This is the end of Stop 1. Proceed to Stop 2.